fighting sail. Fleet Actions from 1775 to 1815 by Ryan Miller. This is one of the Blue Book series from Osprey Publishing. I really like these series. They are fairly light war games that are great for getting into a new genre, a new era, which is important for a guy like me who has very little experience with this style of wargaming. The couple of games that I've played were either pickup games or participation games at conventions 30, 35 years ago. Couldn't tell you what rules we used, could only tell you that I had a good time. Also made the mistake of watching, not the mistake, I enjoyed the recent pleasure of rewatching that modern masterpiece of cinema, Master and Commander. So I had the bug. Also, for those of you that have been watching the channel for a long time, you will remember that we did a couple of black powder campaigns in a world called Bellum Munda, and in the second campaign, about halfway through, we ran into an issue where some troops were being transported by fleet, and I was at a loss. Now, the guys over at Rocky's War Room, I think, they actually played that battle out, but it was weeks after I had already moved past that part of the campaign. So this may be incorporated into the next Black Powder campaign using the Solo War Games campaign guide. That's all preamble. The big thing for this video is I want to help you guys who are thinking about getting into this style of wargaming avoid some of the pitfalls that I dove headlong into. I've had a great time so far, still early stages for me. I can't speak with any authority on this. All I can do is tell you what what I've done right and what I've done wrong so that you can follow in my footsteps in the former and not the latter. With all of that preamble out of the way, we should point out this is Fleet Actions. I had originally expected to do some one-on-one ship action in 15 millimeter. And part of that was that when I was at my favorite gaming store in the world, Griffin Books down there in Indiana, Skadoosh, they had some like 25-year-old Merrimack miniature bags, and I picked up a Zebek, little ship about yay big, haven't painted it yet, thinking that I would order a couple of more from its Old Glory that now has those on their website. I don't know if they're produced. Well, I know they're not producing them because when I put the order in, I got an email back the next day saying, hey, the pirate ships that you ordered in 15 millimeters, we can't fulfill that because the guy that makes those resin miniatures is terribly sick. And I thought, oh man, that's fantastic. Hang on. It's not fantastic that the guy is sick. That is very unfortunate. And, guess what we're doing for him and his family. But the nice thing is that means I'm working on the right side of this hobby. I'm buying stuff mainly from mom and pop outfits that can say, yeah, we ceased production because, grandma died. The company's grandma died. So, I really would much rather support those smaller outfits as opposed to what I call big mini. The big miniature games, they're corporate. They're just, I like the hobby style of this game. He said as he's buying from Osprey, well, don't make the perfect the enemy of the good, people. The point being, okay, so if I don't have time and I don't have the availability, now I'm still going to buy those ships, when they become available from Merrimack Miniatures or Blue Moon Manufacturing or whoever is subcontracting that out. But for now, I thought, well, I can still do Fleet Actions. So I can't do 15 millimeter. What's the next scale you should look at? And for you may want to do 1/1200 scale. So 1 inch equals 1200 inches or 100 feet would be your ground scale. And those miniatures are fantastic because you've got, there's some pictures of that in here. I believe these figures here are 1/1200. Now there's two problems with this. One, there's a lot of rigging in there, and as much as I love painting figures, and I'm not sure if these are resin or not, but this is not the kind of figure I like to paint. I like metal miniatures, and the fact that these are so big is really going to limit the amount of ships that I can use. Take a look. One of the things that I've done is, as a wargamer with limited space, I give myself these challenges. And just as an acknowledgement, as a dilettante, I bounce around in a lot of different styles. I say, look, I'm only going to use this box. This is all I've got. This is a really useful box. It is a 9-liter box, which I believe is, a little over 2 gallons in volume. And that's it, man. If it doesn't fit in here, then I got to pass. I got a hard pass. So I went down, and this is kind of where things start for me. And I found these great little, packages, so I can slide my miniatures in here. So for me, the question of scale actually starts with the scale of the box that I'm using. And then we look at these, and then I say, okay, well, the 1/1200 is just not going to work, because that means the miniatures are going to be yay big, and I'm only going to be able to fit a half a dozen in here. And, 4-on-4 is a fine war game, but if I want to throw like masses of first-rate ships, for those of you that are new to this, those are the ships that have like 100 or more cannons on them. We're talking triple deckers, the big bad boys. I just don't have space. Also, I've already went, and just so you know, this is a 1 yard piece of fabric. Cost me $4.44, and it's going to look suitably oceanic. I have some variety to that, but I just thought I'd go ahead and show you that this is what we're driving towards, and taking a holistic approach to the game. I got to cut that off so it fits a little bit better. We'll break that back out in a second, but I want to show you the 1/2400 miniatures that I have so far. These all come from Tumbling Dice, which is a British company, and well, let me just bring them on in here so you can see. And what you're looking at is it's actually 3 sets. Tumbling Dice, great customer service. I'll explain more on that shortly. This is 2 separate fleets. This is one fleet down here, and this is a second fleet up here. And then I ordered a couple of shipwrecks. So if we want, we can kind of turn off my auto zoom. We'll bring those a little bit closer, and we'll show you that there's your wreckage. So the rules that we're using, you can capture prizes, and you'll tootle this around with the ship to say, see, he's got a prize in tow. Or maybe it's something you can't, it blocks line of sight, it blocks travel, don't run into it. I'm not sure, but I just painted those. And one of the secrets is I wasn't sure how the waves were going to work. I said, you know what, I'm not sure. I haven't painted. This is, effectively, I think it's like 0.3 millimeters is how big the people are. I'm not sure how to do this. So I started with the wrecks, because that way if my paint job was terrible, I could say, well, yeah, it's terrible, it's a wreck. That would be my excuse anyway. And then just kind of generic coloring. Now, as you can see, this is actually a USS Constitution in 1/2400 scale. These are metal figures. They are not single piece. I had to glue the sails onto the masts. So these masts come cast, and then this comes on a separate sprue, and then you have to, and then these guys up front come on a separate sprue as well. The I think that's a spanker, and I can't. Are these the jibs? I don't know. And of course, there was a lot of glued fingers as I did this, and a lot of colorful language. My daughter actually halfway through the completion of these, particularly these little jobbers. So that's a 4th rate ship, USS Constitution, kind of a jumped up 4th rate, more of a jumped up 5th rate. This is a little brig, and same thing. You can see there's a couple little mold lines on there I didn't quite get to. These 2 little sets of sails, this is where it gets really tricky to get those in there. And then to have to glue that guy on there, I just glued it. So the question is, am I going to rig it? I might put a little bit of rigging up top and a little bit down there, but that's for later. One of the reasons I went 1/2400 is I think they look good without the rigging. I don't think you need the rigging. It'll make it a little more stable, which would be nice. And I think just a little bit up top, I don't know. We'll see. So getting back to how to get into this genre. So what you're looking at is, this is a starter fleet. It's a pack from, as I said, Tumbling Dice Miniatures. It's a British company. And for 17 pounds, you get 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 ships. It's about $25. And shipping wasn't that bad. It was $10 for this whole thing. That is the American fleet. And it has... these are 6th-rate ships, which mount, I want to say something like 30 guns, 5th-rate ships up to about 50, and then, as I said, the Constitution here, these, we'll probably class them as 4th-rate ships, depending on how things go. This fleet down here with all the little squatty guys, this is a starter pack of Barbary Pirates and Privateers, and they come in, I think we might be able to get away with. These are all just kind of, little privateers, brigs and schooners mostly. So what I have right now is kind of the low end of the power scale. Let's take a look at these Barbary Pirates here real quick. And as you can see, I went with a simple gold and red patterning on these guys. This is your, what is this, little lateen rigged schooner, I guess. We got a couple of little tiny guys. Maybe that's a schooner, I'm not sure. Different, I wasn't happy. This is a light blue, the water here is a light blue base with a dark navy wash. I didn't like that as much. This is a pure blue base with a dry brush in pale blue and then a final dry brush in white off the stern to make it look like that white water. And then, of course, you've got a couple of lateen rigged ships. And here's another set that's actually kind of mixed with lateen and square sails. And they also come with two sets that they have their sails up, but as you can see, they're rowed. Now, Tumbling Dice does have a whole wide range. They've got everything from Greek to Roman galleons, Spanish Armada ships. They've got the Anglo-Dutch War, or is it the Dutch-Anglo War? I can never remember. Like I said, I'm kind of new at this genre. Up through World War II, and they have a mix of range scales as well, up to 1/300 scale. So you can use 6mm figures on them. Those are our Barbary Pirates that the American Navy is going to go up against. And these are this is the Black Fleet. I went ahead and put black sails on them with a little bit of red trim. And as you can see, the biggest of my pirate ships is dwarfed by this mid-sized American ship. Okay, so that means when we get to the battles, we're going to be fighting primarily on the lower end of the weight scale, right? These boxing matches are going to be featherweight versus featherweight. Not a lot of heavy hitters, but I thought, I don't want to do that. So even though this is a great deal and a great way to start, let's go ahead and take a look. Now, here's one of the big points that I have for if you're looking to get into this genre. And I want to break out the rules for fighting sail. We're going to pop back up so we get a little better look here. And specifically, I want to take a look at the fleet list, right? So here you've got, so we can get that to zoom in. These are the ships for Great Britain. You've got first-rate ships. I should back up a step. The usual battle is going to take place on a 4x4 foot board. You're going to have about 300 points worth of ships. Well, you need one flagship, which could be anywhere from 50 to 100 points. Let's go ahead and use the Big Mamma Jamma. One first-rate ship, 120 guns. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a couple of third rates. Well, I'm up to 200 points already. Oh, well, if I have... Okay, so maybe I'll take two third rates and a fourth rate. Now I'm up to 240, and then, oh, look, if I take 3 fifth rate of frigates, I'm done. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ships, and I'm done. Well, look how many more ships I have here. And again, this is for the British, who I think are the only ones with the second-rate ships. When you flip over to the United States, the biggest, as I said, the biggest ship they have is that Constitution class. But now we're looking at my flagship. If I'm not using the USS Constitution, I got a flagship that's a fifth rate for 33 points. And then to get to 300 points, man, I got to take a lot of frigates and brigs. So these are fifth and sixth rates, and you can take as many of these fifth and sixth rate frigates as you want. But if you take 5 of those fifth raters, if I take 3 of those fifth raters, that's 100 points. I'm still only up to 130 points. I got 173 points to go. So these little brigs down here, if we tally it up, if we class these 5 as brigs, then you're looking at a total of 65 points. 65, and then if these are sixth raters, 65, we're only up to 100 points here. Fifth rate's 160. We barely are going to squeak over. Now, to be fair, one of the other things that this game features is a point cost for special abilities. Your admiral can be a hero, which that 10% won't mean anything to you, or daring, right? When the initiative roll is tied, you get the initiative for 4 points. That's for your admiral, and all your captains can have marksmen. So we could bump all of these up by 6 points and make them punch well above their weight, which is historically accurate. But when you get started painting something like this, you get to a point where you think, man, you know, I really do want to see what a slugfest looks like. I'm not here to play pop gun versus pop gun. I also want to be able to do the big heavy, the heavyweight matches. So I just today put in, and I screwed up the order, to be honest with you. This is one of the reasons I recommend tumbling dice. I screwed up the order, and then I sent them an email and said about 8 hours later, and I said, hey guys, can you just cancel that for me? I really need to order a lot more stuff. And they said, oh, more stuff? Yeah, tally ho. And they canceled, and I put in a new order. They have a starter Napoleonic ship of the line unit, which is going to get you a first or second rate, I want to say a pair of thirds, and then a fourth, fifth, and sixth, and a couple more of these. Now, the way I'm going to paint these is a little bit different. If I had room, I don't, right? I don't have room. This is it, man. Once this is full, I'm done. So, as much as I would like to build a British fleet, and a French fleet, and a Dutch fleet, and a Russian fleet, and an American fleet, and my cool little pirates, there's just not enough room. And I'm going to be using these for multiple nations in Bellum Munda, the campaign. So since I've already started painting my black fleet, the black sails are, of course, ahistoric. They did treat the canvas with pitch or tar to weatherproof it, but it immediately got sun bleached. It's okay. These have been gray primered. I'm going to paint this as the white fleet. And I'm going to, when I get my ships of the line in, I'm going to add those to the black fleet. So I will have a black fleet and a white fleet. And when we play our war games, we'll say today the role of the British is going to be played by the white fleet. I should point out, in addition to the starter set for the Napoleonic ships of the line, I also went ahead and bought an East Indiaman, and I'll have to think about whether that's going to go in the black ships or the white ships. I also bought a couple of gun brigs and a couple of, what do you call those things? Bomb rafts. They're basically close inshore. They're literally just rafts with bombards on them. They're not sailing vessels. They're just meant to get artillery out into the shallows, you know, so that to kind of supplement a fort. Because I am working on, let me go grab those. A few islands, and if you've played any Pirates of the Spanish Main or you've seen any of those, I got done. So this started like this. I'm not going to do a whole how-to video, but this started like this. It's an egg, and this was like 75 cents on Amazon. They come 10 to a pack for like $5. I said, oh, well, that could work fine. You know, again, we're an impressionistic hobby, and it's fine if we want to do a perfectly round island. But I went in and took a belt sander and kind of started divvying it out, and you can see it's still rounded here. It's because my belt broke. I have to go down and get a new belt for my sander. But this is an example of what we're going to look like when we have a headland, and we'll build those up to add cliffs and rocks and beaches and whatnot. But we'll be able to stick that on the side of the battlefield and say, yeah, look, here's our estuary. So we can park our bomb rafts out there, and we can probably model in a fort or two. I do have some 2mm forts, way out of scale. I'll probably add a couple of forts or a little village or something so that we have some inshore scenarios we can do. And then I have a couple more of these. They're just, you know, what are they, like 3 inches across. But like I said, I need to get, and this is what it looks like when you have a belt sander that works. So we'll get those all done up. And then one last thing I want to show you. Fighting Sail has rules for terrain. Not every battle is going to take place on a flat, calm sea. Weather will play a huge effect in some of these. And to model that weather, I went ahead and just took, this is mat board. It's the stuff that you mount paintings with or on. And I cut it into some irregular shapes, and I made a fog bank. Right? And then here's a shoal. See, I even put the word on there so that you can see there's a little shoal down there. This is going to be rain. See the dark rain shadow? There's fog. And then I think that's it. Fog, shoal. I got a couple of shoals, couple of fog, couple of rain. So we can set those out around the table, and they can drift around, and they can give our little boats something to fight over and something to avoid. The shoals might be fun because the larger vessels will have a larger draft, and these little guys might be able to skate right over, leaving these guys to have to tack and come all the way around. So very simple terrain to start with, and then I do have a couple of other little fun surprises to show you once we get rolling in this exciting new, for me, old genre. And then the nice thing is these, because of the way they're printed, I can just either, well, I don't know if you knew this or not, but I'm a really good wargamer. I'm a very good wargamer. So what I did for once was I fit them into my box before I painted them up. And they're just hand painted, by the way. If you can paint a boat, you can paint this. It's just impressionistic. It's just a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of brown. I pulled up a picture of shoals on the interwebs and tried to make this look as much like that as possible. The whole thing is going to be your shallow. This is just to represent and help remind you we're dealing with a semi-submerged island. And it's a bit at an angle because that way we can throw that down and we may say, look, if this is the edge of our battlefield, look, your island is not going to be approachable by the deeper drafting ships. They may be able to park one of those bomb rafts, one of those artillery rafts out here where it's going to be a lot harder. The other thing we should probably talk about is scale. The scale for fighting sail is written for 1/1200, but as I said, these ships, and one last thing I'll point out, these are metal ships. I like a little bit of heft to my ships. I'm not planning on putting them on any kind of base. They just feel like miniatures to me. I'm not interested in resin or paper miniatures. I could easily have bought a full package of Pirates of the Spanish Main boosters and use those, but then I wouldn't get the joy of painting, which is part of the joy of wargaming. 1/2400. So I have the option now of cutting all of my ranges in half and keeping all of the scales appropriate. The game, and we'll see more of the game later. I don't know if it's any good. I haven't played it. I'm not going to tell you if it's any good until I've played it. They have templates here for movement. This is 2 inches across. This is 2 inches. So if you move the full 2 inches, you can turn your boat. I may be cutting this in half and moving 1 inch at a time to keep my ship scale in line with the ground scale. Well, not the ground scale, the water scale, I guess you would call it. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. I might go ahead and just use the regular scale. We talked about this in a recent video. And one of the reasons I'm not sure is because of something that we're going to talk about in another video that will answer a few questions for people and provide a real-world experience for keeping track of ground scale. So keep an eye out for that coming up in the next week or so. And in the meantime, you know, we've got we've got 10 pirate ships and we've got 10 Barbary pirate ships, so we can go ahead and do a little bit of fun, you know, hornet swarms going after each other in the not too distant future. But I think I didn't want to cut up my book and I didn't want to photocopy. I actually went ahead and spent the money on a fancy Litco turn counters and wind compass and some anchor tokens that are going to look really sharp instead of just the little Michigan Rummy discs. So once those come in and I've had a chance to familiarize myself with the rules a little bit more, you can expect to see some fighting sail and some of the fun in that. No campaign for now, just getting familiar with it. But those are the big takeaways for me. Take a look at the scales. I really enjoy the 2400 scale. It's big enough that you get to see the scale and the impressive difference between a fourth rate and a little schooner, little brig. Doot, 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 doot. You'll find that the tops of these masts are going to be about the same. I think for the first rates, they just have a much thicker gun deck where the hull of the ship is going to have 3 decks of guns plus guns on the surface. So Should be about the same. I'm hoping that my one fear, and I'll let you know if it turns out, if these are 1.25 inches, which I tested. I took one of these into the hardware store and I tested it out. I said, am I going to buy this? I put the miniature in and I closed the thing and I said, oh yeah, no, that's going to work out just great. See, I even have a little bit of spare space up top. So unless those first rates are crazy big, I think we're going to be just fine. And even if they are too big, we'll find a way through. We'll power through. So big mistakes. You know, if you're going to go with this route, you may want to go ahead and buy 2. If you want to do the heavy hitters, if you want a heavyweight fight, get 2 of the Napoleonic squadrons that include the first and second rate ships. Because if you get these little rinky-dink guys, you might regret it. Or, hey, maybe it just provides, like it did with me, an excuse to go out and buy some more first rates. We'll have to find out through play whether 6 sinking ships is enough. And, yeah, again, tumbling dice, that's the way to go. Don't be afraid to hit Walmart for your ground cloths. See that? And also, you know, from my perspective, let's see if these ships show up. Oh, yeah, look how great those are going to show up on the battle mat, right? This is what you need to think about. The old guys whose eyes aren't doing so great, look at that. Let's see how well that shows up on camera. I mean, it'll show up just to, okay, we're okay. It's going to show up great on camera. And for us old guys whose eyes are starting to go, it's going to show up great. That's kind of why I did the yellow sails too, so it's really obvious. In addition to triangles versus squares, which side is which. Hey, that's all I really have for today. I kind of feel like I'm rambling a bit, so we're going to cut it off. I'm praying for you.